here's the thing. You can use unsound logic in an argument and still be right, right? I could say, listen, the Steelers are the best team in Super Bowl history because I like them a lot. Well, we can evaluate whether that is sound logic or not, but whether it's good or bad argument change doesn't mean that the actual proposition is good or bad. It's just unsound, right? Because it doesn't unless you say that the standard for evaluating the best team in Super Bowl history is going to be whether I, Fraser O'Leary, like them a lot, unless we've agreed on that as the standard, then that it doesn't where it just doesn't follow. And a lot of what we're going to talk about is does it follow? Does it follow that if all mammals are animals and all elephants are mammals, does it follow that all elephants are animals, right? By our logic, it does. It follows. That goes step one, step two, and then we have a conclusion, step three, and it follows. Well, if I say all mammals are animals and elephants are really pretty, thus all elephants are mammals, you would say, wait a minute, that doesn't follow, right? It doesn't, it's a jump. And in arguments and in logic and in debates, people will sometimes make arguments that do not follow the rules of logic and thus are unsound. And if they don't follow the rules of logic, again, it doesn't mean that what you're saying is wrong. It doesn't mean that the proposition that elephants are mammals, I mean, my conclusion, elephants are mammals, is still accurate, it's still right, but it's unsound. It's an unsound argument because I threw something in that didn't follow and I drew a conclusion based on a non sequitur, right? So we're going to talk about these hundreds of different fallacies, or what are called fallacies. And a fallacy in sort of normal speak is sort of foolish, something foolish or a lie. It's an untruth. In logic, it's a little bit different. A fallacy is something that is unsound logically. So, for instance, one famous fallacy is an ad hominem attack. An ad hominem is Latin for to the man, or it's an abusive attack. So if I say, for instance, you say, we're arguing about what the best football team is, and you say, I say, you know what, the Steelers are not the best team because you like the Steelers and you're stupid. Well, it may be true that the Steelers are not the best team, but it doesn't follow from your logic, and that is a specific type of fallacy, which is called an ad hominem attack. And that happens a lot in arguments. People say, well, this person believes that, and they're wrong, they're stupid, or they're bad people. And what that is doing is it's attacking the person, right, to the man, ad hominem. It's attacking the person rather than dealing with the argument at hand. And so why do we focus on logical fallacies? It's so that you can identify when something is happening that's not following the strict rules of logic. For instance, if somebody says that this is the best movie because so many people like it, because it was the most popular movie in the country. Well, if by best you mean most popular, then that might be a reasonable argument. But if you're saying it's the best, meaning it's the highest quality, because so many people like it, well, that's a specific fallacy that says that the popularity of something relates to its rightness or wrongness, or to its goodness or badness. And so these are just things that I'm going to get you to be familiar with, these different fallacies, so that you can note, and sometimes you'll note this in a debate, you'll note that this person is using faulty logic. And faulty logic is one of the terms for that is a fallacy. So a fallacy doesn't necessarily mean stupid or untrue, as it does in sort of general terms. What a fallacy is it's faulty logic. Somebody can be using a fallacy in their logic, and they could be still right. it's just not good logic. And so it's an unsound argument. And what we want to do is not only get you to a point where you have thought through your beliefs and you are able to defend your beliefs reasonably, but and challenge other people's opinions or positions reasonably, but we want to make sure that you're doing it with sound logic. Now, there are times when we start talking about rhetoric, when we start talking about public speaking, when we start talking about these other things, there are times where something you might do in public speaking is a good device. It's a good rhetorical device to persuade somebody, but it's unsound logically. And really what we're going to be talking about is how to understand logic so that you're thinking soundly. So as we go through over the next over the next week, I'm going to be introducing some arguments, some fallacies, and we're going to try to present them, and I'll give you some examples, but I also want you to present examples. And one of the challenges for you is to identify, and as you're sort of watching political speaking, or as you're watching sports, or even as you're watching entertainment, or as you're in a conversation with people that you know, to identify that somebody is using that they're using a logical fallacy. They're using unsound logic to try to substantiate their point. For instance, if I say to my kids, you should do this, or you should do this because I said so, well, I'm not, listen, I as a parent believe that you should do this because I said so, but that doesn't, if I'm saying this is the right thing to do because I said so, logically, unless we say that the right thing to do is everything that I say to do, then that may not be logically followed. It's still what you should do. I think you should listen to your parents, and my kids should listen to me. And sometimes it's enough for a parent to say this, they said so. They're not making a logical argument that this is the right course, that this is a good course. They're saying, do what I said to do because you're the kid and I'm the parent, and there's a logical argument. You should do what I said to do. And what is the rule? You're the child. Children should do what parents tell them to do. Ergo, you should do what I tell you to do, and that's a logical flow. Okay. Now, if you don't agree with a certain principle, then that logic may fall apart. I agree with that principle, but again, these are different things we'll discuss. And you can challenge each element of this logic. But so what we're going to do here, this is just a very brief introduction. What we're going to do over the next week is I'm just going to introduce a little bit more about logic, some ways to think about it. I'm going to introduce some logical arguments, and I want you to see if you can identify where the logic falls apart. I'm going to have you present some logical arguments, and hopefully by next week we're going to be in a position where you'll be able to not only sort of, again, in the comfort of your own webpage, identify some positions that you would like to explore a little bit more, and just identify, these aren't positions you necessarily have to want to change. These are positions where you just want to say, I want to expose them to a little bit of challenge so that I can deepen my understanding of why I believe them and how I can defend these beliefs. Okay. Between now and then, and actually as soon as possible, I'd like for you to complete your course profile. And so if you go back to the debate hall, you can click here, and I just want you to go through and tell me a little bit about your experience, any topics that you're interested in debating, specific topics that you're not interested in debating, any scheduling issues, then anything else you can tell me. Complete that as soon as possible, and I'll provide you an update. And probably over the next week, I'm going to be releasing different logical fallacies, a definition, sort of an explanation of them, and then I'll give you an example, but I also then am going to challenge you to present your own examples, and you can see some of the different examples that the classmates put together. And hopefully by next week, we're going to have a reasonable catalog of logical fallacies that you can be on the lookout for. All right, I'm excited. It'll be fun. After we get through this first couple of weeks, I think we have our first debate scheduled for in a couple weeks from now. So take a look at the calendar, see when that is, and we'll get going.